Hello, and welcome to the Gaia update for the September Equinox 2020. I'm Adrienne Elise. So the equinox is when we're halfway through the zodiac, moving into the next season, the balance, the equal day and night. And so this is the day that the sun moves into Libra, and we have Mercury in Libra. So we're really looking for some balance here and some harmony, and it's a good time for it, huh? Wow. But then Mercury in Libra is the day before this equinox in exact square with Pluto in Capricorn, the day after this equinox in exact square with Saturn. So it's like bridging a bridge between Pluto and Saturn, speaking to the breakdown that needs to happen in the structures, all the structures of our life, but in Saturn and Capricorn, particularly the authority structures, the limits, the rules, the laws, the way we have been doing things in 3D reality. Gotta go. And so, this makes sense, right? We're in the breakdown, and it's such an intense time. And this is a very important message for the SuperNova Soul. I've been talking about this. It's our time to be in that constant vigil, to be absolutely present as much as we can with what's happening, which is crazy because the SuperNova Soul is getting pinged around the universe into all of these different timelines, not even realizing that's what's happening to you. But the energy of this is very dynamic, and it feels like we're in this stasis, stuck in the status quo. But really, what's going on is such dynamic change and an influx of super powerful ascension energies. The bloom of very obvious, for those who want to see, control energies oppressing us right now really has to do, it's a reaction to the light that's coming in. The spiritual awakening is here and it's happening. And that's the task of the SuperNova Soul right now, is to be devoted in the moment as much as you can. Now, it's hard because you go to the moment and you're going to find that dark, nasty, whatever left over from whatever traumatic past lives. We're jumping, being like kind of triggered into our deepest, darkest past life patterns. And so you got to be there. But then underneath that, what the most powerful, radical thing you can do in these next 6 weeks is to hold the present moment, a sense of well-being, a sense of peace and harmony. Maybe this is this Mercury energy. It's like, and it's like, shit's got to break down. None of this stuff can come with us into the new age. We can't take this garbage. We can't take the darkness. We can't take the distortions and the controls and all of that. And it's got to come to the surface to be seen. So everything that's happening is so hard right now, I know, but it's like a manifestation energetically of something on another level. So we're being pinged around into these old timelines and maybe future timelines, and holy crap, like what's on the table for the SuperNova Soul is like, why are you here? And you're here to harmonize this situation. But karmically, we all have our karmic energy of like why we're here on this planet right now. Because it took a lot for you to get here as an advanced soul, to squeeze yourself into this reality, and that's kind of what we're being asked to do, is be really present with that way bigger picture of what's happening, and why you're here. And one, you're here to give yourself permission for that spiritual awakening. What if it is true that you've already gone through spiritual ascension, and there's a part of you and your psyche and your bigger self that just knows it's all okay, everything's fine. But we got to go through this like dark night place to go heal those old timelines, to heal those traumas, to release those old stories. And part of the energy that seems to be coming forward has to do, so this might be the total key right now, is that you're here because you may have interfered. We live in a free will universe. It's up to each person individually to decide they're going to move forward in their spiritual evolution. And then, so we learn, humans learn through pain until you're done learning through pain. And as an advanced soul, maybe you were, here and got pulled into the traumas, pulled into this idea that your devotion to humanity and to the earth and to spirituality meant to suffer along with them. And that's your karma, is that you took on responsibility where it wasn't yours, and you maybe interfered, with the free will paradigm. And is that why you have to sit here and watch this right now and feel it all and cry the tears of thousands of people? Okay, well, maybe. But the whole energy of this equinox has a lot of timeline alignment energy, timeline healing energy. And that's a very profound thing, is that I'm seeing so many supernova souls on the one hand breaking through old stories and being free and having moments of ecstatic existence, like a psychedelic experience, these ascension energies coming in like, whoa, this is what life is. Oh, wow, right? But then sucked back down into those old trauma timelines. But the message is that, and men pinging around to all these timelines, not even realizing you're doing that. And so it's a very confusing time, but also a very dynamic time. So know that when you get down into the dungeon and in that deep, dark oppression and that kind of psychological attack energy, that is trying to push you through. It's trying to go save you. And maybe the souls we're saving is our own self stuck in these trauma timelines, And it's trying to just squeeze you into that wormhole so you can get out of the trap of that old timeline, which, the timelines are past lives. We say past because, it's past regarding to where we are, but then we know time doesn't really exist. So it's really kind of like a parallel thing. So the message there, on the one hand, it's like, okay, we're getting pinged around to all these timelines and it's really intense and super dynamic and really just overwhelming, and also can feel really stuck too. It's like things moving really fast, but then also feeling completely stuck. But the message is that when you heal that your trauma from your past timeline of like what you're being forced to go clean up, the dredge of what you couldn't address in all these other lifetimes, what you left for last? Probably the most fun part, right? But when you do that healing it's almost like we're being asked to go back and meet. It's like a part of ourselves that's been split, like a split personality in these old personality constructs from these past lives, past parallel timeline experiences. But when we go it's like we have to go and find that person. We have to listen. We have to hear the story. And maybe it's a really good time actually to get very clear pictures of past life and information, which can really help you let go of these old stories. But it's like we need to go comfort that person and bring them home. Listen to them, to what happened. And when you do that, what I've been shown is like, it sucks, right? It's hard and you feel all alone. I mean, you're in an old timeline. You're all alone, right? But that healing that you can do for yourself and that timeline heals the whole timeline. Maybe that's part of the power of being a supernova soul, and maybe why on some level we experience these traumas. I don't know. But then it brings you back to the present, more permission to present time, right? So maybe this experience of ecstatic expression of life force and living in, this is what life's supposed to be like. And can I give myself permission to be there while the rest of the world is in absolute chaos and turmoil and waiting for the end, But when so you have an experience of that, and then you're like crashed back down into the dregs of what you haven't addressed. But when you heal that and bring yourself home, you have more permission for the present moment and to slip through all of this. Everything that's happening right now in our crazy world is an expression, it's an outward expression of deep systemic distortions, illness, darkness that's plagued the planet for a very long time. Now it's coming to the surface. It's a healing. It's an ascension. It's a spiritual awakening. And more than anything right now, the task of the supernova soul is to live that truth, because everything wants us to distract from it. It's like, no, this is a physical world and it's going to hell and you're going with it, And it's like, no, I've been in hell long enough, I think, time to bring back heaven on earth. And that's what we're here for. But it's like constant vigilance here in this next 6 weeks, because Mercury square Saturn on the day after this equinox, that's the day that Mercury moves into its retrograde shadow. And when it turns direct, it's going to spend a whole week, the first week of November for the US elections, in square to Saturn. So Mercury trying to keep the peace and harmonize and find balance in all of this. And maybe that balance also has to do with equilibrium, like getting kind of stabilizing in our higher activations that are happening if we allow ourselves to receive them right now through all the garbage. But that balance, the harmony being challenged by the laws and the rules and the man and the structures that have not budged, have refused to budge, as a spiritual awakening, the divine timeline, this, activation energies trying to come in, and the old guard, the deep state, the control energies just holding, won't let go. They're going to fight to the death. And it's a multi-headed monster. So can we harmonize this process? Because we know we got to break it all down. And can it be harmonized? And that's what Mercury is asking. And with all of the Aries energy going on, though, of course, we're having this fight for trying to figure out how to fight for our life force, for our permission to exist, for our permission to access our very own life force that has been feeding the lower matrix through the slave planet and through the trauma stories and all that. So a very powerful time, because from this, it's kind of like a marker, and this equinox is a marker. And I was like, boom, here's a chapter, Mercury square Saturn. And then at the end of the retrograde, at the beginning of November, Mercury square Saturn. And this next 6 weeks, really 8 weeks, because Mercury, when it comes out of retrograde shadow, that's mid to, I think, maybe the 3rd week of November. So Thanksgiving, we are in this constant vigil time, place. And that there's so much that the control energies, the lower matrix is they're using all their resources right now, because this is a super activating time. The oppression that we see is a direct result of how activating these times are. And that's where you need to put your energy, like, wow, we're in a spiritual awakening experience. And it feels so good. It's going to feel so good. It's so exciting. This is the deal. This is reality. This is truth. And everything else is like, no, it's the end. It's trauma. It's horrible. The world's ending, Armageddon. And it's like, so we have to understand that everything that's happening is about our awakening and using it in that way. Now, there's that beautiful thing of you going and doing that healing work, and that the effect of your healing work and getting yourself back home from that trauma timeline is a healing of the whole timeline. Beautiful. And then there's an energy of this is what's going on right now, why things are so weird. It's a timeline war, where there's this divine optimal timeline and energies that are working for supporting the most optimal timeline. And then there's the negative creating trauma timelines. And they're just doing everything they can to try to create more of that energy. But we have to understand, and this is why this time is so crucial for the supernova soul, that negative creating throughout time is by by creating an energy of trauma and fear. Predictive programming, saying, oh, this is what's going to happen. Oh, there's going to be a civil war. There's going to be riots. There's going to be this. There's going to be unrest, So you got to be really careful right now, because part of the energy of this time is showing us, the supernova souls, the power of our consciousness. And we know this but we haven't been forced to fully claim it, you know? And then there's this weird thing going on where when you reach out and you do have those moments up out of the matrix, you feel completely alone. This is this quarantine. And it's this message trying to get you to go back in, because like, well, you'll be all alone out there. What's the point? You might as well stay down and play with us in the dirty sandbox, you know? But this is this quarantine, and it's so real, but it's so not real. Because I see every day the SuperNova Souls, there's so many masters on the planet right now. Just advanced souls that don't have any need to come and have a body besides their love and service. There's all these amazing, bright star children that have been born in this last decade on the planet right now. And it's like, energies coming in are just so beautiful. And we got to keep our eye on the prize. We got to set our sights on the heights, you know, and make that real in every moment. Because what I was shown is like, okay, yes, we're bouncing around timelines. It's so chaotic. There's a timeline war. And maybe that's where we get trapped back into the responsibility energy. I mean, I know I do. Every day I have to be like, wait, no, you know, like, dark feelings about how bad it is and how it's my fault, and it just doesn't even make sense, right? But this is what's going on for the SuperNova Soul, and it's hard because our devotion to humanity and this evolution in the past has meant coming down to experience suffering with them. Now our devotion to humanity means allowing ourselves to get out of that vibration, because coming back to the negative creating, it's just like, and what we're being shown right now, what humanity is being shown, in the SuperNova Souls on another level being shown the power of your consciousness. And when we work together in our consciousness, when you hold a resonant piece, like a heart frequency resonance, it entrains to the people next to you. Entrainment is like when you have cells or molecules in order, and you put the out of order molecules next to it, they'll come into entrainment. And this is the deal. Like, we can't harmonize down. This is artificial. If you can tell yourself that, like, the psychological attack energy in lower matrix is artificial. It's fake. It's a lie. And the only reason you're buying into it is because you feel bad. And so you're going to feel bad because you feel bad. You feel bad for humanity, so you're going to feel bad with humanity. And how dare you go and be outside of the matrix? And yet that's what we're here for. And it feels so much better. You know, it feels so much better. But we got to go see, the Saturn energy is interesting, because Saturn is that last visible planet. It's a guardian of the threshold. So it's like the ceiling we're coming up against in our higher evolution. And all of these programs from past lives that say that it's not safe for you, it's not safe for the planet, it's not your territory, you don't belong there. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why would we have this capability within our being? And we worked for many evolutions to have this higher capability in our higher chakra system, our technology, that we have a tiny little understanding of what that is. It's been so deliberately attacked and dismantled and controlled through evolution, this whole evolution. But it's like, why would we have it if it's not safe and ours to use? You know? And then we have to kind of look at like all these control energies that we've made these contracts with. You know, they're lower dimensional from where we ultimately came from. You know, it's like, why would we agree to this? This is the big lie. So now coming back to the timeline thing, is that so we're dancing around in all these timelines. It's really weird. And we're healing timelines by healing our own trauma. But there's a place outside of timelines, which is basically the one divine timeline in the present moment. So that's where we can find our permission to feel better, our light of truth, our higher vibrational frequencies, our well-being. So the devotion we need to have right now for humanity is to allow ourselves to feel good, feel better. That's our true mission here. That's how we harmonize this experience. You know, we're all waiting for this next thing, for the Armageddon, for the financial change, for the truth to come out, for, you know, the world to end or whatever. And the next step in this process that we're all waiting for is these souls giving themselves permission to be in the truth of who you are, which you can only get to. That timeline is in this moment, this precious moment. But when you go to that moment, which this is this constant vigil, right? Because we're in charge of our consciousness. We get to decide what we think and feel. And we're going to put this resonant frequency out there and put it out. Even if we don't feel the other souls on the resonant frequency, we know they're there. And to just grab a hold of that reality as a spiritual practice. And in that now moment, you're outside of timelines. It's the only time that actually exists. But you go there and you feel what you haven't wanted to feel too, right? But then we got to go rescue those parts of ourselves from those lower timelines, bring them back, love them, heal them, forgive them, just like embrace this. All these old stories. What keeps souls stuck in old timelines as a past life reader and looking at the Akashic records, it's always a regret or a lie. You didn't get the whole truth of what was happening. You were betrayed or something happened, there was other circumstances. But it's all regret, like, oh, I fucked up, And it's like, we just don't have time for that shit right now. We got to just forgive ourselves. Like, we're here to learn. This is Earth School. And we're not here to succeed in the Earth realm. We're here to ascend and allow ourselves to come back to who we really are as a spiritual being. So, very important, powerful time to just be as present as you can in the moment, knowing that that's where you're going to have to face, that's where you're going to find these trapped parts of yourself in old timelines, but the healing that you do by opening up to the information and get this receiving support, that heals that whole timeline, that whole period of time by you getting, because that's, if you were persecuted in a past life, see, this is where we get to this place of a SuperNova Souls. Like, this is the only thing that makes sense. Like, why has this all happened? But say you were that kind of targeted, persecuted light worker. And then when that light worker goes and heals that person burned at the stake and brings them home and loves them, that's over. That story is over. And that's exactly what we're doing and why it's so intense. But as we integrate, every time we do that, we get more permission for the moment, and that one moment, that's also the ideal timeline. It's the only time we have. And if we're going to do our true work here, which is stabilizing, harmonizing, and holding this higher frequency vibration so that the negative creating can no longer happen. That's the deal. Like, the control energies, it looks really bad, but it looks really bad because control energies are having to go through so much and use so many resources and so much artificial means for negative creating. And so we have to kind of be like, yeah, it makes sense that all this predictive programming and all this unrest is to keep people in fear and to keep people disconnected and in trauma so that they can do more negative creating, except for we're done with those stories. Every moment these timelines are healing and you're doing the work, you've been doing the work, and isn't it about time for this to pay off? But you got to get squeezed in order to give yourself permission to feel better. It's got to get rough and tight. And so we're back and forth between these energies. And so this equinox has that energy of timeline alignment and connecting back in to the pathways of light, which is the synchronicities, the information pathways, the connection between people pathways, this magical feeling. Remember that magical feeling? It's been so dampened down, and it's like these pathways are opening back up. And don't listen to the voice that says you're going to be all alone if you go any further. It's so huge right now for people. This isolation is part of traumatic mind control. Psychological mind control, they use isolation and abandonment. Is that what's going on? And then there's a mysterious energy in ancient practices of initiation gone wrong or been manipulated. And it's this feeling, this program that says, if you go any further, so it's like almost a picture I can see where the supernova soul giving themselves permission to go up out of the lower matrix, but then being like, no one's out there. I have to be all alone. Why would I do that? Like, it's like death. That's what they want you to think. But actually, outside of the matrix is where these pathways of light are opened back up, and the magic and the synchronicities and the information and like the fun and getting back together, finally living, and this is where we have to be. Like, are you here to struggle? Like, is that serving you anymore? Are you here to be in the darkness? Are you here to keep crying the tears of the collective consciousness? Are you here to be tortured? Why would such a beautiful, advanced soul need to be so tortured? Enough is enough. And giving ourselves permission to be in our full glory and experience life as an advanced soul in a body, God consciousness, fully aware of the fact that it is God consciousness and the ecstatic experience of that. That's what's waiting for you outside of the matrix. And of course, it's like, oh, sure, that sounds good, but do you really deserve it? Right? But we have to be like, wait, what are we here for? Like, can we waste our precious spiritual gifts anymore on this lower garbage? No. And that's where it's like, it's about you and taking care of you and getting yourself out of Houdini's box, and getting outside of this matrix. And that's the next stage of the journey. And that's what we're doing. And that's what moves the whole thing forward too. No pressure, but it's just like a really important reorientation from that you're here to suffer with humanity as your service, and actually your true service and your true devotion to humanity and to the light and to love and to this earth. And the optimal timeline is to release yourself from the lower matrix and from the suffering and to live again. We've just been operating on a tiny little fraction of who we really are. And maybe that's part of the timeline healing, right? We got to go back and get these pieces and integrate them. And then come to the one timeline, the only timeline. Get out of all the stories. That's what's being asked of us over this next 6 weeks and 2 months. Is you create the ideal timeline by allowing yourself to feel better and being in the moment as much as you can. But know that when you go to the moment, you're going to find all the garbage you didn't want to feel, right? From that most traumatic lifetimes. And it's really hard when you're like, what is this? How do I fix it? How do I heal it? Because it has nothing to do with everyday life, or it's just triggered, but it's like so big. And that's the power of going back and, being open to the messages or the pictures and to understanding of these past lives. It's on the table right now. Part of your higher capability is to access timelines and information, the Akashic records. That's just kind of a definition of who you are. And you'll start having, right now is a ripe opportunity to be able to receive past life pictures to help you heal. And maybe that's part of the pathways of light opening back up for us to get on the ride of the golden adventure of what's really happening here outside of the garbage. So hang in there. I hope you'll consider joining. I'm doing a soul group session. This is a group intuitive session going deeper than the activation. It's going into shared past life pictures. This is going to be Monday in the 21st, and Monday at 7 p.m. in Mountain Time Zone in the U.S. And like I said, a group intuitive session where we're looking at shared past life pictures of people who come to the group. If you can't make it live, you can catch the replay and still get the session. We're working outside of time here. That's the magic of what we're doing. We're coming to that moment. In that moment, that's the only time we have, and that's the ideal timeline as well. And then the question, how do you know when you're on the right timeline or you're, on your optimal timeline? And I'll say, you feel good. You feel like you're going somewhere. You're doing what you're here to do. You're directed in each moment in the excitement of what's to come. I know that just goes and flies in the face of what most of people are experiencing right now, but that's kind of why you're here. You're here to be the rebel. And then the rebel was the healer light worker in the past, and that healer light worker right now is giving yourself permission to be the light and experience the light cellularly and celebrate the light and demonstrate the light And so huge energies of adjustment. No, it's like it feels like a stuck time, but it's also a really dynamic time. So much is happening, and that's why we got to pull ourselves back to the moment to make the most of it, you know. It's like we can only live right there, right now. And that's what we're being asked to do, and hold that frequency resonance of what's really going on here, which is a spiritual awakening. And so anyway, maybe I'll see you at that soul group session where we go deeper into past life energies. We can look at, you know, typically maybe contract clearing, soul retrieval, timeline alignment type stuff coming through. So I hope to see you there at the Equinox soul group session. Keep your vibe high as much as you can. Give yourself permission. This is your job and your work, and your devotion right now is to you. This is this Chiron and Aries. You owning your life force back, and your permission to higher frequency vibrations is your spiritual service work. So I hope to see you there on the next update. Thanks so much for being here with me. We're here together. Even if you don't feel it, we're, you know, follow that pathway of light, and we will find each other there in real time as well as on the astral plane. So I look forward to seeing you soon. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.